The wildlife of Saudi Arabia is substantial and varied. Saudi Arabia is a very large country forming the bulk of the Arabian Peninsula. It has several geographic regions, each with a diversity of plants and animals adapted to their own particular habitats, as well as high mountains and deserts. There is a coastal plain and long coastline on the Gulf of Aqaba and the Red Sea to the west, and a rather shorter coastline on the Persian Gulf to the east. Geography. Saudi Arabia has a range of mountains, the Sarawat Mountains, which run parallel with the Red Sea coast. These are low at the northern end, have a gap in the middle between Medina and Taif, and are higher at the southern end, where Mount Sauda in the Azia Mountains, at just over 3,000 meters, is the highest point in the country. Between these mountains and the Red Sea is a coastal plain known as Tihama. The west side of this range is a steep escarpment, but to the east is a wide plateau called the Najd, which is bounded on the east by a series of mountain ridges, including the Uwayq Mountains, east of which the land descends gradually to the Persian Gulf. In the south of the country is the Rub al-Khali, or empty quarter, the largest sand desert in the world. It slopes from about 800 meters near the Yemeni border, northwestwards nearly to the Persian Gulf. Another sandy desert, An-Nafad, lies in the north-central part of Saudi Arabia, and it is connected to the Rub al-Khali by a broad swathe of sand dunes and gravel plains. Most of the country has very little precipitation, less than 8 centimeters in many regions, and in the Rub al-Khali there may be no rain for a decade. The mountainous region of Asia in the southwest is wetter. It receives monsoon rains between May and October, which may amount to 48 centimeters. The Red Sea was formed when, in the Eocene period, the Arabian Peninsula began to move away from the continent of Africa. This prevented further exchange of genes between African and Arabian species. Furthermore, the late Tertiary and the early Quaternary eras saw a period of climatic cooling that drove vegetation bands southwards, and the Arabian Peninsula received an influx of species from Eurasia. With increasing aridity, conditions became unamicable for many of these, and they retreated to the damper, southwestern mountainous regions, becoming relict populations. Flora. Studying the flora of Saudi Arabia is a daunting task because of the vast size of the kingdom. The general pattern of vegetation is now known, but the exact distribution of the many species of flowering plant is poorly understood. Almost 3,500 species of plant have been recorded in the country, with nearly 1,000 species known from the southwestern region of Asia with its higher rainfall. Plants in general are xerophytic and mostly dwarf shrubs or small herbs. There are few species of tree, but date palms are abundant in places. The east of Saudi Arabia often receives Mediterranean depressions from November onwards. The arrival of sufficient quantities of rain causes perennial plants to produce new shoots, and the seeds of annual plants germinate. These annuals grow with great rapidity and complete their life cycle within a few weeks. By April or May, the annuals will have flowered, set seeds and died, and the perennials return to a state of dormancy. In desert areas, plant growth is mostly confined to depressions or wadis, though some plants with deep rooting systems grow elsewhere. The Rub al-Khali Desert has very little plant diversity, with about 37 species of flowering plant having been recorded here, 17 of which are only found around the periphery of the desert. There are virtually no trees, and the plants are adapted for desert life and include dwarf shrubs such as Caligonum crinitum and saltbush, and several species of sedge. Around the margins of this desert are open woodlands with acacia and Prosopis cineraria. The Azia Mountains in the southwest of the country, and most of the western highlands of Yemen, support a distinct flora which has affinities with parts of East Africa. The highest parts are clothed with cloud forests, southwestern Arabian montane woodlands which includes, on north-facing slopes, Juniperus procera and Euryopsa arabicus, draped with the lichen Usnea articulata, and on south-facing slopes, dwarf shrubs such as Rubus petitionus, Rosa abyssinica, Alchemilla critantha, Senecio and Helichrysum abyssinicum, with Allosabian euphorbia in the driest locations. Lower down, below about 2,500 meters, there is evergreen woodland and scrub dominated by Olea europarea subsp. Cuspidata and Tarchonanthus camphoratus. Below about 2,000 meters the vegetation is deciduous scrubland with acacia, comifera, gruyere and succulent plants. Fauna. The fauna of Saudi Arabia has been better studied than the flora, not least because of interest in the larger mammals for the purpose of hunting and shooting. Birds and butterflies have also been studied, but less is known about other parts of the animal kingdom. Some of the larger mammals found here include the Arabian wolf, the red fox, the caracal, the striped hyena, the sandcat and the Cape hare. However, habitat destruction, hunting, off-road driving and other human activities have led to the local extinction of the striped hyena, the golden jackal and the honey badger in some localities. The Asia Mountains in the southwest of the country is where the critically endangered Arabian leopard is still to be found, and this region is also home to the hamadryas baboon. The Arabian Oryx used to roam over Saudi Arabia's deserts and much of the Middle East, but by 1970, it had been hunted to extinction in the wild. However, a captive breeding program had been initiated at the Phoenix Zoo in the United States in the 1960s, and the oryx has since been successfully reintroduced into the wild in the marviikad protected area in Saudi Arabia, a fenced reserve of over 2,200 square kilometers. It is also now present in the Urik Bani Marad protected area, where the goitre gazelle and mountain gazelle are also to be found. Birds native to Saudi Arabia include sand grouse, quails, eagles, buzzards and larks, and on the coast, seabirds include pelicans and gulls. The country is also visited by migratory birds in spring and autumn including flamingos, storks and swallows. McQueen's bustard is a resident species that is dependent on good vegetation cover, often being found in areas with dense scrubby growth with shrubs such as Capparis spinosa. The cliff faces of the Asia Mountains provide habitat for the griffon vulture, the Varro's eagle and the small Barbary falcon, and the juniper woodlands are home to the Yemen linnet, the Yemen thrush, the Yemen warbler and the African paradise flycatcher. The hamarkot nests in the Wadi Turaba Nature Reserve, the only place on the Arabian Peninsula at which it is found.